The kitchen was a suffocating cage, the hum of the refrigerator a low drone against the silence. Clara Bennett stood rigid, her auburn hair unraveling from its chignon, strands clinging to her tear-damp cheeks like delicate scars. Her green eyes, usually sharp with wit, were clouded with betrayal as she gripped a crumpled letter, its words a poison seeping into her soul. Across the counter, Daniel Bennett's lean frame sagged, his sandy hair disheveled, his hazel eyes flickering with desperation. "Clara, please, it's not what you think," he stammered, his voice a fractured plea, his hands reaching out only to falter in the air. The letter's truth was a guillotine, severing the fragile threads of their marriage. Then the phone shrilled, its piercing ring a blade that promised to unravel everything, exposing a betrayal neither could have foreseen. Clara Bennett, at 32, was a woman of quiet contradictions. Her auburn hair, often swept into an elegant twist, framed a face with high cheekbones and green eyes that held a spark of defiance beneath their warmth. As a graphic designer, her talent was undeniable. Her bold, emotive designs adorned magazine covers, blending vibrant colors with intricate patterns that spoke of her restless creativity. Her studio, a sun-drenched loft in their Boston brownstone, was a chaotic sanctuary, sketches pinned to corkboards, coffee mugs stained with espresso, half-finished canvases leaning against walls. To her friends, Clara was a beacon, poised, successful, the woman who had it all. But beneath her polished exterior, she carried a quiet vulnerability, a fear that her carefully built world could crumble. Daniel Bennett, her husband of 7 years, was her mirror and her opposite. At 35, he was a pediatrician with a runner's build, tall, lean, with broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of his patient's trust. His sandy hair curled at the edges, and his hazel eyes crinkled when he smiled, a charm that disarmed fussy toddlers and their anxious parents alike. His practice in Back Bay was a whirlwind of stethoscopes and sticker rewards. His days filled with the laughter of children and the gratitude of mothers. Their brownstone, nestled on a quiet street lined with maple trees, was a haven of warmth. Ivy climbed its red brick walls, the kitchen smelled of rosemary and fresh bread, and the living room glowed with candlelight during their late-night talks over jazz records. To the world, they were a love story etched in gold. Clara's creativity, Daniel's compassion. Their shared laughter a perfect harmony. But harmony was an illusion. The cracks began as whispers. Daniel's phone buzzing at 2 a.m., his fingers quick to tilt the screen from Clara's view. "Just work," he'd say, his voice too casual, his eyes avoiding hers. There were silences, too, moments when their easy banter faltered, and he'd stare out the window, lost in a world Clara couldn't reach. She blamed it on stress. Her own deadlines were relentless, her latest project, a rebrand for a national publisher, stealing her sleep. Daniel's practice was busier than ever, his evenings filled with paperwork or consultations. Doubt was a shadow she pushed away, clinging to the belief that love meant trust. Then came the evidence, small but searing. A crimson lipstick smudge on Daniel's white coat, a shade Clara, who preferred soft corals, would never wear. She found it one evening in the laundry room, her fingers freezing on the fabric, the stain a stark accusation against the crisp cotton. "A patient's mother hugged me," Daniel said when she asked, his laugh bright but brittle, his hand waving it off as he turned back to his coffee. Clara nodded, her smile tight, but the doubt took root. Then came the scent of perfume, floral, with a sharp note of jasmine, clinging to his coat after late shifts. The work trips followed. A conference in New York, a seminar in Chicago, announced with vague itineraries and hurried goodbyes. Clara wanted to believe him, but trust was a brittle thread, fraying with each new sign. One crisp October evening, as amber leaves swirled outside their brownstone, Clara sat alone in the living room, the TV flickering with a cooking show she ignored. Daniel was in New York, texting her a photo of a glittering skyline. Stuck at this boring conference. Her laptop sat open, her design project forgotten. On a whim, she opened their shared cloud account, telling herself she wanted a photo from their Cape Cod trip, the one where they'd laughed over lobster rolls, their feet buried in the sand. Instead, she found a folder labeled Work Docs. Inside were emails, hundreds of them, between Daniel and someone named Lila. Her heart thudded as she clicked one open. "I can't stop thinking about you," it read. "Last night was everything." The words were a blade, slicing through her. She scrolled, each message a deeper cut. "Meet me at the hotel. She'll never know." The dates matched his trips: New York, Chicago, a retreat in Vermont. Clara's vision blurred with tears, her hands shaking as she slammed the laptop shut. The life she'd built, the love she'd trusted, was a house of cards, collapsing under the weight of his lies. Clara didn't confront him right away. The truth was a wound too raw to touch. Instead, she watched him, her green eyes sharp as knives, cataloging every gesture, every lie. Daniel returned from New York the next day, his suitcase thumping in the foyer, his smile as warm as ever. "Missed you, babe," he said, kissing her forehead. His lips lingering a moment too long, his touch, once a comfort, now burned like a brand. Clara played her part, her voice steady, her smile a mask, but inside, her heart was a storm of rage and grief. She became a sleuth in her own life. Lila Harper, she learned, was a 26-year-old nurse at Daniel's practice. Clara found her on Instagram, her profile a gallery of sunlit moments. Lila, petite and blonde, her hair cascading in loose waves, her blue eyes bright with a carefree charm. Her laugh seemed to spill from her photos, her captions cryptic, chasing dreams under city lights. One post stopped Clara cold. Lila at a rooftop bar, the New York skyline aglow behind her, posted the same night as Daniel's conference photo. The betrayal was no longer a shadow, it was a vivid, inescapable truth. Clara's investigation became an obsession. She checked Daniel's phone when he showered, her fingers trembling as she typed his passcode, their anniversary, a cruel twist. She found texts from Lila, "Can't wait to see you tonight." A photo of them at a jazz club, Lila's head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. A hotel receipt in his wallet, folded tightly, for a suite in Manhattan, dated 2 weeks ago. Each discovery was a shard of glass, embedding deeper, but Clara couldn't stop. It was as if knowing the full scope of his deception would somehow dull the pain. She began following him. One frigid November evening, she tailed him to a cafe in the South End, her scarf pulled high against the biting wind. She parked her car a block away, her breath fogging as she slipped through the shadows, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and adrenaline. Through the cafe's fogged window, she saw them, Daniel and Lila, tucked in a corner booth. Their hands brushed across the table, fingers lingering, their laughter a private melody. Daniel leaned in, his smile soft, intimate, a look Clara hadn't seen in months. Lila tossed her hair, her laugh carrying through the glass, sharp and carefree. Clara's stomach churned, her hands clenching into fists, nails biting into her palms. She imagined storming in, shattering their moment, upending the table with a crash of glass and fury. Instead, she stood frozen, the cold seeping into her bones, her heart a tangle of rage and sorrow. She turned away, her boots crunching on the icy sidewalk, each step a retreat from the life she thought she knew. At home, Clara unraveled. She poured wine with shaking hands, the glass trembling as she drank, the Merlot sharp on her tongue. Her designs grew chaotic, dark swirls and jagged lines, a stark departure from her usual elegance. Friends noticed her distraction, her brittle smiles. "You okay?" Sarah, her best friend, asked over coffee, her brown eyes soft with concern. Sarah, a curly-haired journalist with a knack for cutting through bullshit, had known Clara since college. "Just stressed," Clara lied, stirring her latte until it went cold, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. Inside, she was drowning, her thoughts a whirlwind of betrayal and self-doubt. She fantasized about confronting Daniel, picturing his face crumpling as she threw the emails, the receipt, the truth in his face. She imagined leaving, packing a bag and driving to a new city, free of his lies. But love, even broken, was a chain she couldn't break. She still loved him, and that was the deepest wound of all. The breaking point came on a gray Thursday in December, the sky heavy with the promise of snow. Daniel was home early, a rarity that set Clara's nerves on edge. They sat in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken tension, the clink of his coffee mug against the counter the only sound. That morning, Clara had found the letter tucked inside a medical journal on Daniel's nightstand, a journal he never read, its pages pristine except for the folded paper. Lila's handwriting was unmistakable, looping and almost childish, confessing her love, urging him to leave Clara. "I know it's hard," it read, "but we deserve to be happy. I can't keep pretending." Clara had planned to be methodical, to lay out the evidence like a prosecutor, the emails, the receipt, the photo, the letter. But as Daniel sat across from her, humming softly, his casual ease a mockery of her pain, her control snapped. She slammed the letter on the counter, the sound sharp in the quiet room, her voice a low, trembling growl. Who is she, Daniel? His face drained of color, the mug frozen halfway to his lips, coffee sloshing over the rim. Clara, please, it's not what you think. His voice cracked, his hands fumbling to set the mug down, knocking over a salt shaker that skittered across the counter. He stood pacing, his fingers raking through his hair. It's nothing, I swear, but Clara cut him off, her voice rising, sharp as a whip. Nothing? I've seen the emails, Daniel. The texts. The hotel receipts. How long have you been lying to me? He froze, his hazel eyes wide with panic, searching for an escape that didn't exist. His excuses spilled out, a desperate torrent. How it just happened. How Lila was a mistake he tried to end. It's over, Clara. I swear, he said, reaching for her hand, his fingers warm and trembling. She yanked away, her chair scraping against the linoleum, her voice a raw scream. Don't touch me. You've been sleeping with her for months. Daniel, months. Her hands shook as she shoved the letter at him, the paper crumpling further in her grip. He couldn't meet her eyes, his silence a confession, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of his lies had finally broken him. Clara turned to leave, her boots thudding against the floor, her vision blurred with tears. The phone rang, its shrill tone a knife through the chaos. She grabbed it before Daniel could, her voice cold as ice. Hello. It was Lila, her voice soft, almost smug, a faint laugh lacing her words. Clara, I'm pregnant. And it's his. The world spun. Clara's knees buckled, her hand gripping the counter, the edge biting into her palm. Pregnant. The word was a sledgehammer, shattering what remained of her composure. Daniel lunged forward, his voice frantic. She's lying, Clara, I swear. But his words were drowned by the blood roaring in her ears, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She hung up, the phone clattering to the counter, and faced him. For the first time, she saw not her husband, but a stranger. His hazel eyes pleading, his charm a hollow shell, his hands outstretched as if to catch something already lost. The story could have ended there, with Clara's world in ruins. But fate had a crueler twist. As she stood in the wreckage, another truth surfaced, one that muddied her righteous anger. 6 months ago, during a late-night work session, Clara had kissed Ryan, a colleague at her design firm. Ryan, with his dark hair and quiet intensity, had been a friend, a collaborator on her publisher project. They'd stayed late, wine loosening their inhibitions, and in a moment of weakness fueled by Daniel's absences and her own loneliness, she'd leaned in, their lips meeting briefly. She'd pulled away, ashamed, and buried it, convincing herself it was nothing. She'd never told Daniel, never thought it could matter. Now, facing her husband, the hypocrisy of her fury hit her like a tidal wave. She'd been betrayed, yes, but she wasn't blameless. Her kiss with Ryan wasn't an affair, but it was a crack in her moral armor, a secret she'd carried. She'd cast Daniel as the villain, but the truth was Messier, they were both flawed, both liars in their own way. The realization didn't erase his betrayal, but it forced her to see her own reflection, fractured and imperfect. A week later, another twist came, sharp and unexpected. An anonymous email arrived containing medical records from a clinic. Lila wasn't pregnant, not with Daniel's child, not with anyone's. The records showed a recent visit, confirming no pregnancy, and hinted at another man, someone Lila had been seeing alongside Daniel. She'd lied to Clara, a calculated move to force Daniel's hand to shatter his marriage. Clara sat at her laptop, the screen's glow harsh against her tired eyes, the truth a cold comfort. Daniel hadn't known about the pregnancy, hadn't planned to leave, but his affair was real, his lies a choice he'd made again and again. The brownstone was sold, its ivy-covered walls a memory of a life that no longer existed. Clara moved to a small apartment in Cambridge, its bare walls a blank slate. She threw herself into therapy, her sessions with a soft-spoken counselor named Dr. Ellis a lifeline. She spoke of her pain, her guilt, her anger, unraveling the knots in her heart. Her designs grew darker, more visceral, abstract forms that bled with her pain, earning praise for their raw honesty. Galleries called, wanting to showcase her work, but Clara found little joy in the acclaim. It was the act of creating, of pouring her chaos onto the canvas, that kept her afloat. Daniel tried to win her back, his calls relentless, his letters arriving in neat envelopes, his handwriting shaky. "I'm sorry," he wrote over and over, each apology a plea for redemption. Clara met him once at a neutral cafe in Harvard Square, the air thick with the scent of espresso. She confessed her own indiscretion, the kiss with Ryan, her voice steady, her eyes meeting his. Daniel's face softened, not with forgiveness, but with a weary understanding. They were both broken, both human, their love a casualty of their flaws. Lila vanished from their lives. Clara heard through Sarah that she'd moved to Seattle, chasing another man, another story. The news brought no triumph, only a reminder of how easily trust could be weaponized, how lies could ripple through lives like stones in a pond. Clara rebuilt slowly. She reconnected with Sarah, their coffee dates a ritual of laughter and honesty, Sarah's blunt humor a balm. She took up running, her sneakers pounding the Charles River path at dawn, the rhythm a way to quiet her mind. The river glittered in the early light, its surface a mirror for her thoughts. She dated tentatively, a dinner here, a movie there, but her heart wasn't ready. The scars of betrayal lingered, but so did her strength, a quiet fire that grew with each step forward. Clara's story is a mirror to the messiness of love, a tapestry woven with threads of devotion and destruction. Daniel's affair, Lila's deception, Clara's own moment of weakness, they defy simple judgment, revealing the complexity of human hearts. Love is a battlefield where trust is both shield and sword, easily shattered, easily wielded. The twists, Clara's guilt, Lila's lie challenge our assumptions, asking who the victim is when everyone carries secrets. Clara's pain, raw and unrelenting, echoes the quiet betrayals we all harbor. Moments of doubt, words unsaid, truths we hide from ourselves. Her journey shows that healing comes not from revenge or neat resolutions, but from facing the chaos within. The brownstone is gone, but Clara's resilience remains, a testament to the human capacity to endure, to rebuild, to find light in the ruins. The truest twist is this: the only way forward is to embrace the imperfect, tangled truth of who we are.